Right, some good news for the left, for a change. Despite all the attempts by the Starmerite Right of the Labour Party to rid itself of the MP of the Year Ian Byrne, they failed. Last night, Ian Byrne was reselected ahead of his main rival Anthony Lavelle by 12 votes. A narrow victory, but that has to be taken in the context of how we arrived at this point. To end up being triggered and forced to fight a reselection battle for his seat, local branches of his party had to vote against Ian, and ample evidence exists that may have been engineered. Despite overwhelming support for Ian at various meetings, the secrecy of ballot results conducted without the proper safeguards in place often came back against Ian and against the apparent intent of those present to vote. There was also evidence of Byrne supporters being excluded from such meetings on spurious reasons, such as being told they weren't up to date in their payments, something that can usually be resolved there and then. But this wasn't always accurate reasoning either. One result even got tweeted out by the right-wing hack Lee Harpin, reporting a Byrne loss more than an hour before the voting actually closed. Ian was cut off from the Organise communications platform to local members, hindering not only his reselection, but his local campaigning, and the selection committee had trade union representatives removed from it, as the unions were known to be pro-Ian Byrne. It's no surprise, perhaps, then, that the original regional representative appointed by the Labour National Executive to sign off on all of these results ended up refusing to do so because he believed Labour were ignoring all of these allegations of irregularities and ignoring the seriousness of them. Well, Starmer's right-hand man David Evans's reaction was to simply overrule the rep and appoint someone else who would sign off on the results. Hardly the action of a party interested in doing things properly. They just wanted a given result. Ian Byrne has referred all of this to the Electoral Commission, quite rightly. But Ian was still triggered. The MP of the Year has set up mobile pantry to feed 6,000 people, helped to found and still helps to run the fans-supporting food banks, the national roll-up of the right to food that councils across the country have adopted, the man who even went to the Vatican for an audience with the Pope in recognition of his work against food poverty, was triggered by his own party unfairly violating party rules because he, like several other MPs, were socialists, were left-wing, and this was yet another factional assault by the red Tories running the party. One of the biggest and most risible complaints about Ian from locals supporting a change in MP was that Ian was too focused on poverty, amongst other criticisms that just didn't stack up. So much so, Ian put out a mythbusters post tackling such claims head on. What kind of a person thinks like that when poverty is such a massive problem countrywide? The contest was on, and it was at times an ugly one. One notable confrontation occurred in Croxteth, the local ward of Byrne's rival, Anthony Lavelle, a man still facing bullying allegations towards a disabled person that he hasn't answered for, and Starmer's Labour gave him a free pass on, of course. Lavelle's supporters blocked a planned rally at the Lobster pub in Croxteth. Claims that Byrne had been told it had been cancelled were proven to be untrue as Ian turned up. An attempt to move it to the next door sports centre after intimidation at the pub was apparently scuppered over alleged threats to their local funding if they hosted Ian. So it all ended up being moved to a car park, where Ian was supported by Metro mayors for Greater Manchester and Merseyside, Andy Burnham and Steve Rotherham, many photos from which have circulated on social media, and in the end was a successful and well-reported part of the campaign. But it got off to the ugliest of starts. But despite all of this, last night the final hustings and the final result came in. Ian had won his reselection by 12 votes. This wasn't without last-minute hitches again. People thought to be supporting Byrne were barred from entering, particularly when the scale of the turnout for Ian became clear. Members turned up, the single biggest thing anyone on the left still sticking it out in Labour can do. And it is absolutely the reason Starmer's faction got a bloody nose and West Derby retains the MP of the Year as their Labour candidate going into the next election. They literally tried to stop people joining the queue to enter, saying they were too late, despite Labour rules making it abundantly clear doors remain open until the speaking begins. The final result was 198 votes to Lavelle, 210 to Ian. Now it remains to be seen as to whether Starmer and co accept this result, or they try and pull a Corbyn on Byrne by finding something to suspend him over. As authoritarian as they are, I wouldn't rule it out. But, and it's a big but, they'd have to pull a fast one now because the left have won the day. The West Derby Labour membership have played their part wonderfully well, and justice has prevailed. Congratulations to Ian and all of his team.